Hey, how's everybody doing?
So today we're going to continue on talking about how to successfully manage the standard operating systems around your project management for your business. Last week we touched on a little bit about your content marketing calendar and schedule. So we're going to talk more in depth about that today. So the first thing you need to do before you start creating a bunch of social media contact and sending it out in front of your prospective audience is you need to identify who that audience is. So start doing some market research. You've come up with a great idea of what product or service it is that you want to sell, and that's great, and we're very excited. But if you don't get your message out in front of the right people, then they're never going to know it. They're never going to be able to buy it. So we highly recommend spending some time, joining some forums, getting into some other chat rooms, maybe reaching out and talking to some people who are in a similar industry and asking them what they would want that relates to your product or service, so that you can, over the next 10, 12, 14 weeks, start to really customize what it is that you're going to sell in order to make sure that you're providing a product or service that people actually do want to buy and will spend the money to get from you.
And another key point is aligning your messages with what your client is looking for. Because the truth is, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. You hear that a lot. It gets beaten into people's heads. People also buy things that solve problems for them. So if you can't nail down what your product solves for somebody, then the truth is your messaging is going to be hard to nail down because you're not clearly saying what the problem you're trying to solve is and how your product or service accomplishes that. So you need to know what your client's pain point is, what keeps them up at night, why they can't sleep, why they're frustrated, why they're overwhelmed. And when you figure out that, your messaging will be very clear, which is part of also why you always want to be ahead. You don't want to be chasing behind, because when you're behind, you're running and you're doing things fast, you're not thinking them through. So it's kind of like making these videos. Sometimes they're just terrible and you start over, and that's why you want them done, ahead of time, because you want to be able to have time to think about why they're not working out the way you thought. So making a promotional calendar for your new content or service and laying it out ahead of time so that on Tuesday, I'm going to give people $50 off if they buy my course ahead of time. On Thursday, I'm going to do bongo, buy one, get one free, bring a friend. You have to have a plan, whatever the plan is, in order to be able to execute it properly.
Yeah, and then after you've come up with your strategy and you've got your content going out in a way that makes sense to you, that helps and supports your product or service, continuing to define how are you going to measure how successful that is. There's all kinds of analytics out there from Facebook and Instagram and Google and everywhere else. If you're using an email campaign, depending on the program you use, you're likely going to get some very clear analytics of, how often people click on your link, your post, your email. Do they open it? Do they read it? So you can identify and you can test different things, put different marketing content out in the market and decide what it is that people want to look at, and either determine that your content is going to the wrong people, and that's okay too. You can test that as well. Or B, if it's going to the right people, it's just the wrong content, you can make those adjustments or pick which content it is that they're actually engaging with and continue to provide more of that content. And those are the simple metrics that you can look at to evaluate how strong and healthy your marketing content strategy is.
So coming up next week, we're going to talk about how do you automate all of these things that we've been talking about. How do you automate your launch to save yourself time? How do you automate your content marketing, your promotional calendar? Because the truth is, it's kind of like social media. There's a difference between me posting a picture of my cat doing something funny, and maybe I get a lot of likes because it's a cat. But there's a difference between using Facebook or Instagram or whatever else you're using for your own personal use, and then using it as far as trying to sell your content and your services. There's a big difference. And the big difference is I don't just put cat pictures on my business page. I have a plan about what is this post doing? Why am I posting it? Am I trying to get sales? Am I trying to get people to like my page? Am I trying to get engagement? What am I trying to do? And so that is, the big difference of why you have to have a plan in general when you're launching a new product or service. So next week, we're going to be back talking about automation. Last week, we talked about content marketing. The week before that, we talked about launching a new product. And we'll wrap it up with setting realistic expectations for your plan for your product or service, as far as what if you think your product is not working. And the truth is, like we keep saying, you may not know for 3 to 6 months if it's going to work. So thinking that you're going to like put something out new on the market and it's going to like explode like your Apple and an iPhone is probably not a realistic expectation.
Yeah, and for those that like to read, prefer to read rather than watching or listening to video, we're going to post a link to a blog that just came out yesterday. We'll drop that down in the comments. And also, in terms of doing that market research, we've created a freebie that you can also download. It's a list of market research questionnaires. We'll put a link to that in the comments below as well. It's a great opportunity to get people on a phone call and ask some very specific questions. You can post them and give them to people and ask them to fill them out and get you some answers. But it's a good way to help you identify who it is that you want to send your marketing content to.
But otherwise, have a good one.
Bye.